Hello and a very good evening. You're watching the news tonight on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses plenary session of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, meets chairman of the Eurasian Economic Commission, Tigran Sargsyan. India successfully tests indigenously developed nuclear-capable Prithvi 2 missile. Surface-to-surface missile has a strike range of 350 kilometers. NITI Aayog predicts economy could grow by 7.5% in current financial year. Vice Chairman Arvind Kejriwal estimates GDP could reach 8% by the end of March 2018. And a day after the US pulls out of the Paris climate deal, a widespread international condemnation for President Trump. UN Chief Antonio Guterres calls it a major disappointment, while the European Union calls it a sad day for the world. Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi today addressed the International Economic Forum in St. Petersburg. The forum is a good opportunity for India to showcase improvements in the economy before world leaders and economists. Prime Minister Modi was the guest of honor at the plenary session of the forum. In his inaugural speech, Russian President Vladimir Putin called upon nations to work towards economic and social progress rather than in strategic confrontation. Prime Minister Modi emphasized that India is poised to take a giant step with its upcoming GST regime. He also underscored the developments in the digital front that are allowing India to transform at a rapid pace.
भारत में पूर्ण बहुमत वाली एक मजबूत और स्थिर सरकार चुन करके आई है और उसके कारण जीवन के हर क्षेत्र में प्रगतिशील विचार के साथ निर्णय करने की दिशा में हम तेज गति से आगे बढ़ रहे हैं और आज भारत ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन की दृष्टि से तेज गति से सफलतापूर्वक आगे बढ़ रहा है। भारत एक इतना बड़ा विशाल देश है, 100 से ज़्यादा भाषाएं हैं, 1700 से ज़्यादा डायलेक्ट्स हैं। विविधता ये हमारी विशेषता है, विविधता हमारी शक्ति है। पिछले कई वर्षों में इन विविधता के साथ फेडरल स्ट्रक्चर के कारण अनेक विविध कानून, खास करके टैक्सेशन में एक राज्य में एक कानून, दूसरे राज्य में दूसरा कानून, तीसरे राज्य में तीसरा कानून, और अगर किसी कंपनी को 3-4 राज्यों के साथ एक साथ काम करना हो तो अनेक कानूनों से निपटना पड़ता था। मैं आज खुशी के साथ कह सकता हूं कि बड़े लंबे अंतराल से हमारे यहाँ जीएसटी, गुड्स एंड सर्विस टैक्स के कानून की में सुधार लाने की दिशा में मशक्कत चल रही थी। हमने उसको कानूनी तौर पर प्रक्रिया पूर्ण कर ली है और 1 जुलाई आने वाले महीने में भारत में जीएसटी लागू हो जाएगा और उसके कारण देश के सभी राज्यों में, पूरे देश के हर कोने में एक ही प्रकार की टैक्सेशन सिस्टम होगी, जो मैं समझता हूं किसी भी निवेशक के लिए और विशेष करके विदेश के निवेशक के लिए बहुत ही उपकारक होती है।
Moving on to some other big news now. India on Friday, successfully test-fired its indigenously developed nuclear-capable Prithvi 2 missile from the integrated test range at Chandipur in Odisha. The test was part of a regular training exercise conducted by the Army. The surface-to-surface missile was fired from a mobile launcher from Launch Complex 3 of ITR. Prithvi 2 missile has a strike range of 350 kilometers. It is capable of carrying 500 kilograms to 1,000 kilograms of warheads, and its thrust is generated by liquid propulsion twin engines. It can hit mobile targets, including unmanned aerial vehicles. The missile was inducted into the Indian Armed Forces in 2003 and is the first missile to be developed by DRDO under the Integrated Guidance Missile Development Program. The NITI Aayog predicts that the growth rate will go up to 8% by the end of the current government's term in 2019. NITI Aayog Vice Chairman Arvind Kejriwal also said India's economy is expected to grow at 7.5% in the fiscal ending in March 2018. He also said that
before this, the present term of the government ends, I would expect that we would have hit the 8% mark and probably entered another round, another trajectory of sustained growth at 8% plus by the time the government completes its term.
Kejriwal also said that the economy would witness a good turnaround as early as the first quarter of 2018-19. He reimposed faith in the country's economy after the GDP growth slowed down to 7.1% year-on-year in 2016-17. The GDP growth in the January-March quarter came down to 6.1%, with which India lost the tag of the fastest growing economy. The slowdown has been attributed to demonetization, although the government denies this. The NITI Aayog Deputy Chairman also described the Goods and Services Tax and the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Act as some of the biggest reforms the Modi government has undertaken.
In terms of the reforms, I would rank, obviously, the GST is clearly the most important reform that has happened. But what has been done is the spectrum is extremely wide, actually. You can take almost any sector. This is very much along the lines that the first NDA government under Prime Minister Arvind Kejriwal had done. If you look back, which I certainly have done, almost every area was addressed.
Meanwhile, fresh allegations were levelled against Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal today by sacked Minister and party leader Kapil Mishra. Mishra claimed that Kejriwal and Satyendra Jain were involved in the CNG car kit scam in the capital during the odd-even rationing scheme, where faulty CNG kits were procured and installed in 10,000 cars.
In fresh allegations against Arvind Kejriwal government, sacked Delhi Minister Kapil Mishra has accused it of installing faulty CNG kits in close to 10,000 cars in the national capital, risking thousands of lives. Mishra alleges that the Delhi government purchased faulty kits from China but claimed that they were manufactured by a Canadian company. Mishra also blamed Kejriwal and Satyendra Jain of awarding the CNG kit installation contract to a company banned by the courts.
दिल्ली की सरकार को ये डिटेल दिए जाते हैं कि किट कनाडा से आ रही है. हमारे पास मैन्युफैक्चरर है कनाडा में, वहाँ पर मैन्युफैक्चर होके इंडिया में आ रही है. हमने इंपोर्ट डेटा कनाडा का निकलवाया है जो हम लोग शेयर करेंगे. कनाडा से कोई किट नहीं आती है. उसके बाद हम लोगों ने जब डिटेल निकालने शुरू करे तो पता लगा कि ये नकली किट चाइना में बनती हैं.
The allegations have once again been rejected by the Aam Aadmi Party.
तो कोई FIR नहीं लिख रहा है. नहीं, मैं तो FIR लिखवाएं. सारी एजेंसियां तो इंतजार कर रही हैं गुलदस्ता लेकर.
Last month, Kapil Mishra had claimed Arvind Kejriwal and Satyendra Jain's involvement in 3 health scams, including one in the procurement of medicines. On Thursday, the anti-corruption branch began investigating the medicine scam. Anu Diwan's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, let's now take a look at some other developments from across the country in Nationwide. The farmers' strike in Maharashtra entered the second day on Friday, with farmers from Pune, Ahmednagar and Nashik joining the agitation. Reports claimed many protesters were blocking trucks carrying milk and vegetables, while in some places traders were selling agricultural products at higher rates. People in Mumbai and other areas faced problems due to shortage of dairy and farm produce. Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis has set up a committee to resolve the issues. Meanwhile, social activist Anna Hazare has extended his support and expressed the desire to mediate between the government and the agitators. The Enforcement Directorate registered a money laundering case to probe alleged irregularities in the 2016 Bihar toppers scam case. The probe agency has filed a criminal case against 8 people, including the former State School Examination Board chairman and 4 principals. The scam had rocked Bihar last year after Ruby Rai, who had topped in the arts category, failed to answer basic questions. Well, the Delhi High Court has issued notices to all the 3 MCD commissioners on lack of cleanliness in the city. The court further noted that there has been a violation of court orders to collect and dispose garbage. This comes after a petition filed in the court seeking directions to the concerned authorities to take steps to prevent diseases like dengue and chikungunya from occurring in Delhi. The CBI on Friday registered 2 charge sheets in separate cases related to the Madhya Pradesh Vyapam scam. In both cases, the accused persons were booked on charges of cheating and forgery under the IPC. It was alleged in the FIR that some candidates had submitted multiple applications but were allotted 2 roll numbers with 1 examination center. The agency is probing the case on the order of Supreme Court. Former IB chief Dineshwar Sharma has taken charge as a mediator for peace talks with Assam's insurgent groups. He has been appointed for a duration of 1 year. Sharma will hold peace negotiations with several insurgent organizations like ULFA, NDFB and a few other small groups based in the state. Well, it's time for a short break now, but news and updates will continue on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The problem that exists today in society is malnutrition. They are the powerhouse of nutrition. You don't find in any other grain such a nutrition available. All the millets put together, their nature of high rich fiber. These crops are good for planet, good for the farmer and good for you.
Watch Eureka with Dr. Vilas Etonapi, Director of Indian Institute of Millets Research, Hyderabad, only on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, there was widespread international condemnation of President Trump's announcement of the US withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement on Friday. UN Chief Antonio Guterres called it a major disappointment, while the European Union called it a sad day for the world. Trump said the accord punished the US and will cost millions of Americans jobs.
Donald Trump on Thursday confirmed that the US will quit the Paris Climate Agreement. The US president described the accord as a deal disadvantageous to the US and one that harmed American jobs.
In order to fulfill my solemn duty to protect America and its citizens, the United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord, but begin negotiations to re-enter either the Paris Accord or really entirely new transaction on terms that are fair to the United States, its businesses, its workers, its people, its taxpayers. So we're getting out, but we will start to negotiate, and we will see if we can make a deal that's fair.
The international community condemned the much-expected decision of Trump. The United Nations said it was a major disappointment. It felt the move of the world's second-largest greenhouse gas emitter could lead to rise in global temperature.
Climate change is undeniable, and it is one of the biggest threats to our present world, to the future of our planet. And on the other hand, climate action is unstoppable. And I urge all the governments around the world to stay the course, to remain committed to the implementation of the Paris Agreement to the benefit of all of us.
Leaders the world over also expressed disappointment over the US's decision, saying it will be an abdication of US leadership on a key global challenge. The decision also drew condemnation from people across the US.
Today, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, announced his decision to withdraw the United States from the Paris Agreement. I do respect this decision, but I do think it is an actual mistake, both for the US and for our planet.
His announcement today from our point of view, is disappointing, but not at all surprising. It was entirely as expected and as predicted and as promised by him.
It's a little frightening, it's scary. I have really young family members, nephews. I plan on having kids myself, and the repercussions of this for the future generations is really frightening.
But despite a big blow to the Paris climate deal, many countries have pledged their commitment to the fight against global warming. Greenpeace organization said there was still hope in the fight against climate change.
It's going to be more difficult without the U.S. However, if you look at that, the rest of the world is responsible for 85% of the global emissions, and you see that other countries are willing to remain committed to the Paris Agreement, and in fact are stepping up their climate ambitions. I think that's a very hopeful message.
Our government is committed, irrespective of the stand of anyone, anywhere in the world. It has been the stand of Mr. Narendra Modi ji. He provided leadership at the Paris summit, and we are committed to ensure that we will do our best to address the issues related to climate change.
中国政府高度重视气候变化问题，坚决贯彻创新、协调、绿色、开放、共享的发展理念，采取切实的政策行动，积极应对气候变化，取得了有目共睹的成效。
Canada is deeply disappointed with the U.S. position. The Paris Agreement is a good deal for Canada, and it's a good deal for the world. It will create good jobs. The clean growth economy is where the world is going, and Canada is going to be part of it.
There will be no penalty on the US for leaving, as the Paris deal is based upon the premise of voluntary emissions reductions by participating countries. However, stepping out of its provisions will be a lengthy process that could take up to 4 years. While Trump said he was ready to renegotiate the deal, the European leaders said the US could not unilaterally do so.
The Paris Agreement is fit for purpose. The Paris Agreement is here to stay. And the 29 articles of the Paris Agreement, of this Paris Agreement, are not to be renegotiated. They are to be implemented. And that's what the European Union will do.
The Paris Agreement of 2015 commits the US and 194 other countries to keeping rise in global temperatures well below 2 degrees Celsius. Only Syria and Nicaragua have not signed the deal. The US contributes about 15% of global emissions of carbon, but it is also a significant source of finance and technology for developing countries in their efforts to fight rising temperatures. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, now to Kabul, where over 1,000 stone-throwing protesters took to the streets attempting to march to the presidential palace. Apart from tear gas and water cannons, police also resorted to live fire to scare off the protesters. They were demanding the government's resignation following the catastrophic suicide bombing on Wednesday that killed 90 people and wounded hundreds. Here are the details.
Helpless and angry, more than 1,000 demonstrators from Kabul and nearby areas clogged the streets of the Afghan capital on Friday, demanding President Ashraf Ghani and senior security officials to step down. Police in riot gear used water cannon and tear gas to block the protesters, occasionally firing automatic weapons into the air. At least 3 protesters were wounded and were rushed to Kabul's emergency hospital. Many among the protesters were families of victims of Wednesday's brazen attack, which was launched from an explosives-laden sewage tanker that tore a massive crater in the ground. The bombing during the holy month of Ramzan highlighted the ability of militants to strike even in the capital's most secure district, home to the presidential palace and foreign embassies. The earthquake-like explosion was the deadliest in the city since 2001. But residents claim that terror reigns the land and they are tired of living that way.
از سران حکومت میخوایم اگر میتونن امنیت بگیرن باشن، اگر نمیتونن استعفا بدن، یک آدم صحیح که واقعا به وطن خدمت میکنه همو باشه. چرا؟ به خاطر چی؟ تا به کی ما قدر زجر بکشیم؟ هزاران خانواده ما شما در ازاششته.
There has been no claim of responsibility for Wednesday's blast, but Afghanistan has blamed the Haqqani network and said that it had been helped by Pakistan's intelligence service. But Islamabad has rejected the allegations.
We actually reject the Afghan allegations, baseless allegations. The approach, the accusatory approach, is unhelpful towards efforts for peace. Pakistan has suffered from the menace of terrorism, and I think we have made unparalleled sacrifices in the war against terrorism. Pakistan has highest stakes in the peace and stability in Afghanistan.
While relatively modest in size, the demonstration in Kabul nonetheless underlines the growing public anger with the government for its failure to ensure public security almost 3 years after most foreign troops left Afghanistan. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, here's a roundup now of the other international news in Global Buzz. Widespread flooding and mudslides in Sri Lanka affected over 6 lakh people across the country. Victims are now forced to live in shelters offered by the government. Besides offering food and shelter, the government is also providing psychological counseling to those tragically suffering the loss of their loved ones. Over 200 people were killed in the flooding in the country. At least 36 people were killed after an attack by a gunman who fired shots from an assault rifle and set fire to gambling tables in a popular hotel casino in the Philippines capital, Manila. The attack took place in the early hours of Friday morning. Most of the victims died from inhaling smoke. Of those killed, 22 were resort guests and 13 were staff. 54 people were injured. The gunman later killed himself in one of the hotel rooms. US President Donald Trump's administration asked the country's Supreme Court to reinstate its controversial travel ban on people from majority Muslim countries. In its filing, the administration asked the top court to overturn rulings of the lower courts in Hawaii and Maryland. It also asked the court to grant emergency requests that would see the travel ban reinstated immediately. The ban has already been blocked by lower courts that have called it discriminatory. And finally, some sports news now, where Leander Paes bowed out of the men's doubles and mixed doubles events at the French Open after losing his respective second-round matches. Paes and his American partner Scott Lipsky lost in straight sets against Spanish duo of Tommy Robredo and David Marrero in the men's doubles. The 43-year-old then lost his mixed doubles match with Swiss partner Martina Hingis. The Indo-Swiss pair lost to South African-Slovenian duo of Raven Klaasen and Katerina Srebotnik. However, Rohan Bopanna and his Uruguayan partner Pablo Cuevas advanced to the third round of the men's doubles. The 9th-seeded pair came back from a set down to beat Dennis Istomin and Treat Huey 5-7, 7-6, 6-4. In the men's singles, world number 4, Rafael Nadal thrashed Nicolas Basheville of Georgia to advance to the 4th round. Nadal, who is seeking a 10th title at Roland Garros, lost just one game in a 6-0, 6-1, 6-0 win. Meanwhile, 5th seed Milos Raonic and 10th seeded David Goffin also progressed to the next round after their opponents retired. 6th seeded Dominic Thiem also reached the 4th round with the straight sets victory over Steve Johnson. Meanwhile, in the women's singles, 4th-seeded Gabin Muguruza reached the 4th round with a straight sets victory over Yulia Putintseva of Kazakhstan. 13th-seeded Kristina Mladenovic also progressed to the next round with straight sets victory over Shelby Rogers. Well, that's it on this newscast. Good night.
Bulletin.